So as we begin, I'm going to ask for a weird honor moment of silence for this little guy. You guys know I drive a blue car. Found him trying to crawl in through the engine compartment. Could you guys all see what that was?
What is that? I can't see.
He's a mouse.
Aw.
It's so tiny.
I know. He's a little jerk too, because he tried to climb up through, and I bet he was eating my stereo wires. But he didn't know what was coming. You know that song, Three Blind Mice?
Yeah.
So cute.
You remember the farmer's wife? Well, she didn't have a tennis racket, but my wife did.
Oh my gosh.
He died?
Today's moment of violence brought to you by suburban people needing to keep their cars free of mice. What's the weirdest thing that's happened to any of you recently?
Nothing compared to that.
Oh, I win today? That might be a good way to start our conversation. What's weird?
I'm so
Oh, I found a lizard in one of my dog's holes.
He's so cute, the mouse.
Hi, Emily. So what happened to the lizard?
I don't know what I was doing, but there's something wrong with my dog, and he looks like a little bit suspicious. And so my dad said go see what it is, and then all of a sudden there's something moving in the ground, and I was like, what is that? So I just decided to dug it up, and it was like a live lizard.
Oh, wow.
And then it just ran off, and I was like, what? It looked like he dug up a hole, and then apparently the lizard actually got in, but I don't know how he was covered of all the dirt, unless he was just buried alive.
Oh my gosh. Hey, so lizards reminded me, I don't know what the connection in my brain was just now, but somehow I reminded myself to tell you about an update from the school district. So a letter went out from the superintendent to all of the teachers, and they haven't created a policy around the end of semester grading yet. So I just want to remind you about how we're doing things. The way I look at this, we have a good 15, 20 people. Right now we've got 11, 12 who show up every day for the calls. I've heard from some people who were not able to connect but are looking at the recordings. And what I'm going on is what I see from you here and also what I see on your blogs. I'm not looking to penalize anyone because I don't really know what people's circumstances are, but I'm happy to reward people for jobs well done. And my hope is that, I've said this all the way through, but I want to repeat this because I really want people to know, if they haven't seen the recordings or if this is their first meeting, this is really kind of an amazing testimony to your character. I just got off a call with other English 3 teachers about a half an hour ago. And one of the things I was most proud of was being able to say to them, I don't have that many students show up, but the ones who are making really meaningful contributions. And I would write each of you a letter of recommendation in a second because I'm that proud of you. So I'm really hoping that more people join you as we get better at this. But for the meantime, keep doing what you're doing. Does anybody have any questions or comments for me before we start the reading for today?
Nope.
Okay. Well, I've learned on Zoom, if I wait that extra beat, that sometimes somebody does. So I've gotten even more patient in my old age. All right, here we go. What was happening when we left off?
Wasn't Beatty talking to Montag, he was in his house and he asked him oh, when will you get better or something, when will you not be sick?
Yeah, he was totally suspicious, and he basically was telling Montag about the history of the firemen. But there was one thing that kind of drove the tension up a notch, right? As we think about the plot and the rising tension. What did Mildred find?
Oh, a book.
Yeah, Montag was hiding a book behind his pillow, and she felt it. And Montag basically yelled at her to get out of the room. Now, one of the things that Beatty was saying, and you got this from the prompt that I put up after our call, I'm hoping that you saw that, was that Beatty was saying that books and thinking made people unhappy because it made them realize how different they were. And Beatty was trying to persuade Montag that if everyone was the same, that everyone would be happy. So he goes on. Montag could lip read what Mildred was saying in the doorway. He tried not to look at her mouth because then Beatty might turn and read what was there too. You guys actually know the word for this. Do you remember in class when I talked about that thing where if I look at a certain direction and you follow my gaze, there's a word for that? I'll give you an A for the year right now if anybody can tell me.
Oh my God, I remember you saying it.
I'll put it in the chat and see if it rings any bell. It would help if I knew how to do that right. Ring a bell?
Yeah.
All right, so Montag was trying not to look at Mildred because he could read her lips. Beatty says, colored people, which tells you how old this book is, don't like Little Black Sambo. Burn it. White people don't feel good about Uncle Tom's Cabin. Burn it. Someone's written a book about tobacco and cancer of the lungs. The cigarette people are weeping. Burn the book. Serenity, Montag. Peace. Take your fight outside. Better yet, into the incinerator. Funerals are unhappy and pagan. Eliminate them too. 5 minutes after a person is dead, he's on his way to the big flu. The incinerator is serviced by helicopters all over the country. 10 minutes after a death, a man's a speck of black dust. Let's not quibble over individuals with memoriams. Forget them. Burn all, burn everything. Fire is bright and fire is clean. The fireworks died in the parlor behind Mildred. She had stopped talking at the same time, a miraculous coincidence. Montag held his breath. There was a girl next door, he said slowly. She's gone now, I think, dead. I can't even remember her face, but she was different. How did she happen? Beatty smiled. Here or there, that's bound to occur. Clarice McClellan. We've a record on her family. We've watched them carefully. Heredity and environment are funny things. Do you know that there's a phrase, like a shortcut phrase to describe that? Nature and nurture. Have you heard that before?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So heredity is our nature, right? It's the DNA, the genes that we inherit from our parents and our grandparents. The environment, the nurture, is what happens around us. And that's why when we talked about Gatsby and the culture of money, or Fahrenheit 451 and the culture of thought control, obviously that matters. The home environment can undo a lot you try to do at school. You can't rid yourself of all the odd ducks in a few years. That's why we've lowered the kindergarten age year after year until now we're almost snatching them from the cradle. We had some false alarms on the, let me stop there. What do you think that says about Bradbury's attitude towards school? Does he think that school is helping people think independently, or is school just a sort of a tool for the government to help people think all alike?
A tool for the people to think alike?
Yeah, I think you're right. We've had some false alarms on the McClellans when they lived in Chicago. Never found a book. Uncle had a mixed record, antisocial. The girl, she was a time bomb. The family had been feeding her subconscious. I'm sure from what I saw of her school record, she didn't want to know how a thing was done, but why. That can be embarrassing. You ask why to a lot of things and you wind up very unhappy indeed if you keep at it. The poor girl's better off dead. You've heard me 1,000 times say this in class, but that's every 5-year-old. How old is Emily, Odalise?
She's 5.
Perfect. I was just going to say that's every 5-year-old's favorite question. Is that her favorite question?
Can you repeat it again? Because she's talking a lot right now.
So when you tell her to do something, what does she say? Why?
Oh, no.
She doesn't ask you why?
No. No, she says no. No, she's like,
she
you
just
do
says
it.
no? So she doesn't even bother asking you the question. She just argues with you?
Yeah, she just argues with me.
Awesome. Most 5-year-olds, if they're going to ask any kind of a question at all, they want to know a reason for what you're telling them to do. You ask why to a lot of things and you wind up very unhappy indeed. The poor girl's better off dead. Yes, dead. Luckily, queer ones like her don't happen often. We know how to nip most of them in the bud early. You can't build a house without nails and wood. If you don't want a house built, hide the nails and wood. If you don't want a man unhappy politically, don't give him two sides to a question to worry him. Give him one. Better yet, give him none. Let him forget there is such a thing as war. If the government is inefficient, top heavy, and tax mad, better it be all those people than people worry over it. Peace, Montag. Give the people contests they win by remembering words to popular songs, or the names of state capitals, or how much corn Iowa grew last year. Cram them full of non-combustible data. Chock them so damn full of facts they feel stuffed, but absolutely brilliant with information. Then they'll feel they're thinking. They'll get a sense of motion without moving, and they'll be happy, because facts of that sort don't change. Don't give them any slippery stuff like philosophy or sociology to tie things up with. That way lies melancholy. Any man who can take a TV wall apart and put it back together again, and most men can nowadays, is happier than any man who tries to slide, rule, measure, and equate the universe, which just won't be measured or equated without making man feel bestial like an animal and lonely. I know, I've tried it. To hell with it. So bring on your clubs and parties, your acrobats and magicians, your daredevils, jet cars, motorcycle helicopters, sex and heroin, more of everything to do with automatic reflex. If the drama is bad, if the film says nothing, if the play is hollow, sting me with the theremin loudly. I'll think I'm responding to the play when it's only a tactile reaction to vibration. But I don't care. I just like solid entertainment. That's awesome. I just saw the chat. Beatty got up. I must be going. Lecture's over. I hope I've clarified things. The important thing for you to remember, Montag, is we're the happiness boys, the Dixie duo, you and I, and the others. We stand against the small tide of those who want to make everyone unhappy with conflicting theory and thought. We have our fingers in the dike. Hold steady. Don't let the torrent of melancholy and drear philosophy drown our world. We depend on you. I don't think you realize how important we are, to the happy world as it stands now. So how would Beatty look at me?
No offense, but probably sad, grumpy.
Not only that, he'd look at me as a threat. Here I am telling you people to think. I'm saying, actually, ask the why questions. He would say that's dangerous. And no offense taken. In fact, I take that as a compliment. Beatty got up. I must be going. Lecture's over. I hope I've clarified things. The most important thing for you to remember, Montag, is we're the happiness boys. I just read that paragraph. Beatty shook Montag's limp hand. Montag still sat as if the house were collapsing about him and he could not move. In the bed, Mildred had vanished from the door. One last thing, said Beatty. At least once in his career, every fireman gets an itch. What do the books say, he wonders? Oh, to scratch that itch, eh? Well, Montag, take my word for it. I've had to read a few in my time to know what I was about, and the books say nothing. Nothing you can teach or believe. They're about non-existent people, figments of imagination if they're fiction. And if they're nonfiction, it's worse. One professor calling another an idiot, one philosopher screaming down another gullet. All of them running about, putting out the stars and extinguishing the sun. You come away lost. Well then, what if a fireman accidentally, really not intending anything, takes a book home with him? Montag twitched. The open door looked at him with its great vacant eye. A natural error, curiosity alone, said Beatty. We don't get over-anxious or mad. We let the fireman keep the book 24 hours. If he hasn't burned it by then, we simply burn it for him. Of course, Montag's mouth was dry. Well, Montag, will you take another later shift today? Will we see you tonight, perhaps? I don't know, said Montag. What? Beatty looked faintly surprised. Montag shut his eyes. I'll be in later, maybe. We'd certainly miss you if you didn't show, said Beatty, putting his pipe in his pocket thoughtfully. I'll never come in again, thought Montag. Get well and keep well, said Beatty. He turned and went through the open door. Montag watched through the window as Beatty drove away in his gleaming yellow flame-colored Beetle with the black char-colored tires. Across the street, and down the way, the other houses stood with their flat fronts. What was it Clarice had said one afternoon? No front porches. My uncle says there used to be front porches, and people sat there sometimes at night, talking when they wanted to talk, rocking and not talking when they didn't want to talk. Sometimes they just sat there and thought about things, turned things over. My uncle says the architects got rid of the front porches because they didn't look well. But my uncle says that was merely rationalizing it. The real reason, hidden underneath, might be that they didn't want people sitting like that, doing nothing, rocking, talking. That was the wrong kind of social life. People talked too much, and they had time to think. So they ran off with the porches, and the gardens too. Not many gardens anymore to sit around in. And look at the furniture. No rocking chairs anymore. They're too comfortable. Get people up and running around, my uncle says. My uncle, my uncle. Her voice faded. Montag turned and looked at his wife, who sat in the middle of the parlor talking to an announcer, who in turn was talking to her. Mrs. Montag, he was saying, this and that and the other. Mrs. Montag, something else, and still another. The converter attachment, which had cost them $100, which back then was a lot of money, automatically supplied her name whenever the announcer addressed his anonymous audience, leaving a blank where the proper syllables could be filled in. A special spot WaveX scrambler also caused his televised image in the area immediately about his lips to mouth the vowels and consonants beautifully. So you know those like deep fake videos where you can see a dog, but then all of a sudden the dog's mouth moves and it says your name? That didn't exist then. This is all in Ray Bradbury's imagination. Her head turned, though she obviously was not listening. Montag said, it's only a step from not going to work today to not working tomorrow, to not working at the firehouse ever again. You are going to work tonight, though, aren't you? Said Mildred. I haven't decided. Right now, I've got an awful feeling I want to smash things and kill things. Go take the beetle. She thinks that's perfectly normal. Like, okay, go take the car and run something over. No, thanks. The keys to the beetle are on the night table. I always like to drive fast when I feel that way. You get it up around 95 and you feel wonderful. Sometimes I drive all night and come back and you don't know it. It's fun out in the country. You hit rabbits. Sometimes you hit dogs. Go take the beetle. She's nuts. No, I don't want to this time. I want to hold on to this funny thing. God, it's gotten big on me. I don't know what it is. I'm so damned unhappy. I'm so mad. And I don't know why. I feel like I'm putting on weight. I feel fat. I feel like I've been saving up a lot of things and I don't know what. I might even start reading books. They'd put you in jail, wouldn't they? She looked at him as if he were behind the glass wall. He began to put on his clothes, moving restlessly about the bedroom. Yes, and it might be a good idea, before I hurt someone. Did you hear Beatty? Did you listen to him? He knows all the answers. He's right. Happiness is important. Fun is everything. And yet, I kept sitting there saying to myself, I'm not happy. I am not happy. I am, Mildred said, and proud of it. I'm going to do something, said Montag. I don't even know what yet, but I'm going to do something big. And that's where I'm going to leave it for today. What do you think? Comments, questions? What's going on in your minds as you hear all that?
Just what is he going to do if he claims he's going to go do something?
Yeah. What do you make of the fact that he said that he wasn't happy in those moments? Doesn't that prove Beatty's case in a way to Mildred?
Isn't it kind of like the opposite? Kind of, I don't know, because like he's claiming he's not happy, but like Beatty was kind of claiming like, oh, we take away all these things because if we make people like unequal, I guess, that they're not happy. And so in this society, it's better and that you should be happy. So like Montag, I feel like is kind of like the opposite. And Mildred is more so of a product of it or like the supposed like prototype of what you should be in that society.
I think you're absolutely spot on with that. And you know what the giveaway was for me? Is when at the very end, Mildred says, oh, but I'm happy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's pretty obvious, isn't it?
Yeah. She's happy enough to go run over dogs with her beetle.
Yeah, and take too many sleeping pills.
Yeah.
And love people on TV more than the people in her real life.
Yeah.
And she's not really a hard one to criticize.
Yeah.
So what do you think would be a good prompt for the day? And are people keeping up with I mean, I'm looking at some of your blogs some days. I haven't looked at all of your blogs in the last couple of days. I'm going to catch up over the weekend. But are people able to get those? Because I usually try and post them within about an hour of the end of the call when I can post the recording. Are they pretty clear? Are you doing okay with those?
Yeah.
I'm a little behind.
Okay. And Michael, that's totally okay. If you're not keeping up like every day with everyone, what I would love to see is enough on your blogs to show for, something for the week so that I know that the reading's making sense to you since we can't check in eye to eye like normal. At least that way, when I read your blogs, if there's 3 or 4 good ones up for the week, I think that's a pretty good mark to shoot for.
All right.
And of course, are you guys doing the journals from the prompts that I'm giving you, or are you kind of documenting your lives now that we open that up as a choice?
I'm doing
The prompts. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm hearing prompts. I'm hearing both.
I'm
Great.
mostly journaling about the life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I love giving you that choice, and I'm glad that different people are doing what works for you. So keep that up. So, sorry?
Well, when are we going to turn in the journal?
Well, it's a really good question. So you can do that in a couple of ways. You can take a picture of them and email them to me, because these are the kinds of things that I mean, if they're not especially private, you could post them on your blogs. That's totally fine. If it is private and it's something that you want to just write, what the going on these days, that kind of thing, then take a picture of it and email it to me so that it doesn't make anybody raise an eyebrow at your blog.
Okay.
Any ideas for a post today?
What's people's definition of happiness?
Ooh, I like that one. Anybody else? All right, I'm going to play with that idea, and I'll put everything up in about a half an hour.
Sounds good.
Okay, anything else before we go?
Maybe like adding so like on the question on what's everyone's definition of happiness, maybe adding like how do you keep your own like definition going, because sometimes others happiness influences, like their definition influences yours, or they criticize yours, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And you know what, the other day we talked about Marcus Aurelius. You just gave me an idea of something I just read about 20 minutes before we got on the call together from a quote from him. So I'm going to see if I can weave that together, because sometimes we look to outside of ourselves for happiness, but in moments like right now, where do we find it within ourselves? That's an interesting part of it too, huh?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And if you weren't on the call yesterday, we're going to get together a reading group for people's siblings, nieces, and nephews, and I'm going to put up an online poll for that. So look for that on the blog, and if you need anything between now and tomorrow, send me an email. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow at 1 o'clock.
All right. Bye, Mr. Preston.
Okay, bye, everybody.
Bye.